Hey everyone, Carolina Venom here. Today I'm doing a comparison between the original LG Optimus Exceed versus the LG Optimus Exceed 2. I'm going to give you the specs of these phones, the pros and the cons, run some tests, tell you some differences and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and start with the original Exceed. This phone is running Android 4.0.4. It's got a 4-inch display with 800 by 480 pixels at 233 ppi. We're going to skip the camera for now. We'll get back to that later. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S3 processor with 1 gigabyte of RAM, with 8 gigs of built-in storage, with 5.5 gigs available to user, and it will hold up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. It's got a 1750 milliamp hour battery with around 8 hours of talk time and around 14 to 15 days of standby time. And it is a 3G device. This phone is closely resembled to the LG Lucid, which is a 4G LTE device, but for prepaid it's named the Exceed, and it is knocked off to a 3G. Now for the Exceed 2, this phone here is running Android 4.4.2. It's got a 4.5 inch display with 800 by 400 pixels at 199 ppi. It does have scratch resistant glass. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon 200 processor with 4 gigs of built-in storage, and it will hold up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. It has a 2100 milliamp hour battery with around 12 hours of talk time and an estimated 18 days of standby time. Both of these here are 3G devices, and both of them have about the same screen. There's a little bit difference there. Of course, with the original Lucid, you got more PPI and you have better pixels, but a smaller screen, so that makes it look better. As far as cameras go, they both have 5 megapixel cameras with autofocus. This one right here records at a maximum of 800 by 480 WVGA. It does have a LED flash, and over here, this one right here records in full 1080. Recording with an LED flash, and also has a VGA front-facing camera. So, you know, as the original LG Exceed bumped up to the Exceed 2, you know, you lost some features. You gained a bigger screen size, a bigger battery, and a smoother phone, but you lost a front-facing camera, the ability to record in 1080, and you kind of missed the durability, because the original Lucid was a very durable phone. It's very solid and it's very well made. The Exceed 2 is actually feels cheaper and less dependable than the original Exceed. And you know, basically, you know, you have your power button here and your volume rocker. You know, basically, you know, everything on it I then showed you in previous reviews. This phone is pretty heavy and it feels very solid. I love the way this phone feels, because it feels very solid. But this one over here is no slouch either. It's very light, but it does not feel as durable as the original LG Optimus Exceed. And what's the different about these two phones is the fact that the LG Optimus Exceed here has been out for a year, if not longer, and it actually still costs more than the brand new Exceed 2. You can buy this. You can buy the Exceed 2 most time on sale for around $69. You know, and the original Exceed is still $100 plus. And I'm like, why? But I know why, because it's got more features. Even though it does have a smaller screen, the front-facing camera, the full 1080, and the screen, the way the screen looks, in comparison, is a big difference. As you can see here, this phone here, it looks pretty sharp for the screen resolution. Of course, it's not 720, nothing like that, but it is pretty sharp and it does look pretty good if I get my camera to focus in. And over here on this one, it just has slightly less pixels and it just does not look quite as sharp as the original Exceed. Now I'm going to run a couple of benchmark tests right now on these phones, just to get that out of the way. So if I can find the if I can find it on here, I'm going to run a quadrant first, and then I'm going to run a different one. My camera does not want to stay in focus tonight, but that's okay. We'll get it worked on, and we will run these benchmarks here. And while we're at it, battery life is pretty good on both of these phones, and not really having any issues. And like I said, for some reason my phone is just not wanting to come in clear tonight. I mean, my camera is not wanting to come in clear tonight, but I want to do this review anyway, so hope it comes out better than it looks. The LG Optimus Exceed 2 is a smoother phone. It does run smoother. I've noticed that the games do run smoother than the original Exceed, and the original Exceed does have quite a bit of lag and freezing up in it. I have noticed that this phone right here has been restored back to the original settings, and this one right here is pretty well full up with apps and stuff. And to be honest with you, the Exceed 1, while it's a very durable phone, a very nice phone with pretty mid-range features and everything, the Exceed has a bad problem with lag, sensitive screen. It's kind of annoying whenever it does stuff that you don't want it to do. So we'll go ahead and look at the test here and see the difference. Over here on the original Exceed, we are coming in at 3001. So 3000, you know, pretty decent speed, nothing fantastic. Over here on the Exceed 2, we're coming in at 5312. So that extra, you know, between the Snapdragon S3 and the Snapdragon 200 processor, this one here comes in, you know, at a lot faster speed, even though both of them does have 1 gigabyte of RAM. So with the Quadrant, this one right here got a higher speed than the original Exceed. Now we'll go over here and we'll run one of these. And I mean, I can just sit here and look at the screens, and the screen on this one here is so much more vibrant than the screen on the Exceed 2. They really kind of downsized the Exceed 2 as comparison to the Exceed 1. You can look at the screen and just tell it's brighter, more vibrant, and it's a lot better looking phone. But like I said, the touch of this phone on the original Exceed and the scrolling, it's really laggy for some reason or another. I'm not sure what the problem is, but it's not a very fast phone. It's not very smooth, but it does work pretty well as far as camera, making phone calls, text messaging. Sometimes the texting wants to hang up with you a little bit, and it kind of gets frustrating. Not had that problem with the Exceed 2. The Exceed 2 is very smooth, and it has really no issues playing games or anything else. It's just a very smooth phone, and I personally like the LG Optimus Exceed 2 because of the smoothness and the bigger screen. But of course, it lacks a front-facing camera, and the camera itself is not that great, and only records in WVGA max recording, while the original Exceed has the VGA front-facing camera, which does pretty well for a VGA camera. And on the rear, of course, it is a 5 megapixel camera, and it does take pretty good pictures, and you can shoot in full 1080 resolution as well as 720. I'm wanting to say it's like 24 frames per second in 1080 and like 30 frames per second in 720. So, you know, it's got more features and more stuff in it. Call quality on these phones are about the same. Both of them sound equally good. There's really no issues with call quality on either one of these phones. Of course, if you want to get the newest version of Android, then the Exceed 2 will be the one you want to get, because I really do not think that the original Exceed will get anything more than 4.0.4. So, but what's the crazy is the fact that the Exceed 2, even from the very beginning, was only like $79 on the Verizon website, and you can find this phone on sale sometimes for $50 to $70. And the original Exceed, while you can't buy it on Verizon's site anymore, you can buy it at places like Best Buy or probably Verizon stores or Radio Shack, places like that. And you're still going to pay $100 to $110 for the original Exceed, and it cost less than that a year ago. So the LG Exceed is really holding its own as far as price goes, for some reason or another. I'm guessing because of the features it's got. Like I said, it's the exact phone as the LG Lucid, which is a 4G LTE device. But since this is a prepaid phone, it was changed from Lucid to the Exceed, and they dropped the 4G LTE to make it 3G. But this is a very durable, very reliable phone. It's been dropped. Concrete dropped. It's been through it, and it's really held up through some pretty good torture as far as dropping it and hitting it and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and look at the speeds here. This one here is coming in at 12,813, a little bit slower than usual. Normally it's around 13,500 what it's coming in at, but it's pretty decent for what it is. Over here, you're coming in at 9,464, which says it's not too bad, but it does have lag. It does lag. It does have some freezing. It has a beautiful screen for what it is. It's a lot better screen than the Exceed 2. But, the biggest problem, like I said, with this phone here is very smooth. It's just a very smooth motion. Buttons work perfectly. Really has no issues at all playing any kind of games. It just works very well. This phone over here, it does have some noticeable lag. Going into the menu, there's times that we'll have to say it'll be loading to pull up the apps and stuff. Right now it's doing pretty good, but of course, like I said, it's clean. It's only got like 3 apps on it. So it is fairly smooth, but the screen is very annoying sometimes. If you ain't careful, you'll end up pushing buttons and stuff like that you don't want to push, and it's just kind of aggravating. But like I said, the camera is, if you don't really care about screen size, or the newest version of Android, then I gotta say that the original Exceed is a good phone because of the 1080p recording and the front-facing camera and everything, and plus the durability is a whole lot nicer than the Exceed 2. But if you want a 4.5-inch display, which is better for viewing, like YouTube videos, stuff like that, and don't mind the front-facing camera not being on there, then this is also a good deal too. This is also a good deal if you're on a budget. I believe they could have done better with this phone here. I believe they could have added at least a front-facing camera and at least 720p recording, but they chose not to. So to be honest with you, both of them are good phones. I'm not going to pass any judgments here on these two phones. You pretty much seen how they ran. You pretty much seen the speeds they run. Keyboards are about the same. Both of them type really good. I have fewer mistakes on the Exceed 2 than I have on the original Exceed, because like I said, sometimes the screen does get kind of sensitive and you end up pushing things sometimes that you don't mean to push. and it's kind of aggravating because there's times when you want to scroll something, instead of scrolling, you'll push an app, and it's just, it's like, oh my goodness, what this thing just quit freezing on me. But it does have a notion to freeze and lag a lot whenever it's been, used a lot with a lot of apps on it and everything. But for this phone right here, like I said, this phone's got the knock knock mode to cut on by itself. It's got the guest mode, features that this phone here does not have. So I mean, you got to take all that into consideration. I'm sorry to review this little comparison is so long, but I just kind of want to give you the idea of these two phones here. Very nice phones. I would recommend either one of them. It's basically down to your preference. And if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to ask me about either one of these phones. I have both of these phones. They're my phones. I'm keeping these phones, so I can tell you about whatever you want to know about these phones here, because they're not going to be returned. So any questions, please feel free to ask me. Both batteries are removable, under here, and the micro SD card slot is under the cover. Luckily, it's not under the battery, so that's a good thing. Easy to get to. But like I said, both of them are good phones, and I do recommend them both. But like I said, questions or comments, feel free to ask me. I'll answer them to the best of my knowledge. Subscribe to my channel. I sure would appreciate it. I'm going to get out of here. Talk to y'all later.